Hello, divine creations, divine marvels, children of God. Just neatening myself up a little bit. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. So here we are, one more day of life in these amazing bodies on this unspeakably beautiful earth. You know, it's not complicated. Just take a look at a tree without any thoughts and just really look. And or that's what I'm starting to do, and I am just filled with awe and wonder as I just look at just a bush. You know, right now I'm looking at this tree out my window, and it's practically like looking at infinity. Obviously not literally infinity, but it's just literally thousands of leaves and details and colors and nuances. And we've moved away from nature, whereas um, I'm utterly convinced that we are designed to be close to nature. To anyone who's new, this channel and this video is about the teachings of Christ as clarified by one of the one of, if not the greatest Christian of all times, Bruno Gröning, who just so embodied um, what Christ taught, that it's very easy to say that he was Christ-like. And you know, he went so far as to say that nature is God. And anyone who spent any time in nature can just immediately just feel, you know, and when we let go of our thoughts, just something very special and precious. And I'm shocked. I've spent my whole life disconnected from nature, and now that I'm starting to connect to it, you know, if I'm feeling unwell, I just look out at a tree, and just if I'm able to let the thoughts go, I just instantly feel a peace and a grace and a positive energy. And so I'm utterly convinced we're designed to live close to that. And yet, modern culture, as Bruno Gröning called it, is we've moved so far away from that. And no wonder things are a mess when this just wonderful, beautiful grace is so readily available and is what's natural, what we're designed for. And of course, things are going to be bumpy if we're not close to that, and hence close to God. So, one of the things that Bruno Gröning pointed out is that there is a divine energy that's available to help and heal. And just like we're designed to be close to nature, we're designed to take in this energy, to be in communion with God. And so it's very easy to do. Please sit with your legs uncrossed, feet flat on the floor, hands on your legs, palms facing upwards, back in an upright position, not stiff, not slouch, just a natural, relaxed, upright position. Then please close your eyes. And now hand over all worries, all fears, mentally separating ourselves from all illness, the thought of illness, the belief in illness. And then take on the belief and the thought of healing, really believing in the body's ability to heal itself, in the ability, the capacity of this divine life energy to heal us. And then ask to receive. to receive this healing life energy and observe your body, noticing what you feel, understanding, viewing every sensation as a step towards your recovery. Observing the body, every sensation, a step towards your healing. Noticing what you feel. Having the will to receive this energy. So, to anyone who's new, I invite you to keep doing this practice of observing the body. I'm going to talk and read a little. So, once again, one more day of life on this earth. What are we here to do? Well, my understanding is that we're based on the teachings of Christ, as shared by Bruno, that we're here to grow and to serve and to enjoy this process. He described life as not just a school, but a play school. And at the end of each day, to review the day, to see how we did, to also, the word that comes to me is also to digest the day. We have so many experiences, made so many choices. Bruno once described it that the average person sort of wakes up, is jolted awake by the alarm clock, hops out of bed and pours down some coffee, goes off to work, is busy all day at work, comes home, eats dinner. I mean, now in the 21st century, maybe watches TV and then goes to bed and then wakes up and does it all over again. That's not really living. I'm not wanting to judge anyone who lives that way, but that's basically just kind of running on automatic. What Bruno, on the other hand, called us to do was to wake up in the morning and tune in and take in this healing energy. And as we go through the day, to the best of our ability, staying connected with the divine and seeking divine guidance. And then at the end of the day, reviewing the day, noticing where we did well, noticing where we could do better next time. And that way, we can actually learn. We can learn from our experience. So, we think of school and we think of like it's a place where you go and you attend lectures and you read books, and that has its place. But I don't think that's what Bruno Gröning meant by saying that life is a school. I believe he meant that we're to learn from our experiences. And I've given this example many times, but it's so profound for me. There's this gathering I used to go to. Um, well, I still go to, but and so there was someone there who I didn't like at the gathering, and every time I saw this person, I had all sorts of judgments. And so once I started doing the nighttime review, reviewing my day at the end of the day, um, I would just what Bruno's instructions are to replay the entire day in front of your mind's eye and notice where you didn't do well. It's kind of the short version of the instructions. But so, I review my day and, like, oh, I went to this event and this and this and this happened. And after doing it about 10 times, I became aware of, oh, and I saw this person and I judged them. But nothing changed. I had to remember that about 3 or 4 times and like, wait a minute, every time I see this person, I judge them. That's not right. I need to do better. I need to see this person as a child of God. In essence, I see their divinity. If nothing else, send some positive energy their way. And so it was this process of I had to review. And so I only go to this event once a week. It wasn't like a daily thing. That might have made it easier to recognize. But first, I had to become aware that I was doing it. Then, catch myself doing it. And to finally, where I was able to shift that. And now every time I see this person, I just either say a prayer or I see their divinity. So it's this process of breaking ourselves off from habit so that we can be in the flow of life and connected to God. So let's spend a little time reflecting on this. Taking in this healing life energy. Reflecting on reflecting. Bruno Gröning called us to reflect on our actions, our thoughts, our words, and our life itself. Observing the body, every sensation, a step towards healing. Hmm. So, what does it mean to be guided by God? Well, um, what I can say about that is through my own experience with living these teachings and seeking to be guided by God, is that there's kind of this, first of all, kind of a feeling of connection with God. First of all, there's the intention. Before anything I say is this desire to be like, okay, and the humility, like, okay, infinite wisdom, you're smarter than me. Please guide me. First comes that desire. Um, and then just kind of this moment by moment watching of thoughts, watching of feelings, um, learning to recognize which feelings are true and helpful, which ones are lies and stressful. But also just paying attention to what feels right and what doesn't feel right on a slightly deeper level than maybe, um, for example, I'm looking to buy a new blender. And I was like, as soon as I thought of this, I'm like, go to this store, go to this store. Like the thought just kept coming, like, oh, you're going to go to the, but it didn't feel right. Um, and even yesterday, I made some plans to go, but it just didn't feel right. And so today I was like, okay, please, God, Christ, and an inspired and an inspired thought. What would you have me do here? And I just had this inspiration. Um, well, why don't you just search on the internet for this blender for sale in the name in my town? And I did, and there's another store that carries them that actually I need to go there for something else. So this is a very small example. And by paying attention to what didn't feel right, I just saved myself an extra trip. And to boot, the first store that I just kept like, go there, go there. It's a huge store and lots of people, and it can be a little stressful at times. Um, and and so this going to this other store just feels so much more right. And so it's a very small example. And what if we're meant to live life like that, guided by inspiration, guided by infinite wisdom? I think that's what's natural, and that we've just fallen away from it. And here on this path, hopefully I am, and I hope everyone here is seeking to be more connected to God and then to be guided. So let's take a minute and reflect on that, see how what I said lands for you. Bruno, just like Jesus, or just as it's written that Jesus did, spoke of being a servant of God. Bruno also used another very interesting word, and I'd be curious to look at the German for it. He also said about being not a servant, but also an instrument of God. What does that mean to be an instrument of God? Well, my understanding is that that this energy that we're taking in right now can literally guide and move us. I often think of the word inspiration, of being full of this energy, and it just moves us in the right direction. And it's a little difficult because you know Bruno said it so well. He said, um, "I am and remain a child of God. I am not ashamed to say so." And I'll have to paraphrase the next part, but he said, "Most people have grown up." Meaning, most of us think, "Oh, I don't need God," or "I've got this," or "I'm in charge of my life." Whereas, Bruno Gröning, just like Christ, sort of emulated this life of God as the father, as the parent. And what does that make us? The children. That sounds, it sounds a little scary, this idea of being obedient to God. And yet Bruno said just that, just like Christ. But the only reason that feels scary is because we've been taught wrongly about what God is. If we really see God as love, as harmony, as wisdom, and goodness, then why would we not want to be aligned with that and guided by that? And not just goodness, but infinite goodness, unfathomable. Bruno said that, I'll paraphrase, that God has so much goodness in store for us that we cannot even fathom it. How much goodness God has in store. So, so how to be guided by God? Well, Bruno, um, I'm sure of what I've read, and I've only read. There's so much that we're so lucky that we have direct recordings of what Bruno said. But there's two things, and I've spoken about. Part of it, which is to listen deeply inside of ourselves, to listen to our conscience, which Bruno said is where our soul, which is our soul, where God lives. But there's something else very interesting he said about how to be guided. So this is Bruno speaking about Jesus and about people's attitude towards Christmas, that people have kind of become blasé, kind of indifferent to Jesus and Christmas. And here's what he said. They took it only like this, and that was that once upon a time Christ was here once, and they don't believe that he is always with us. And they also don't believe that he can dwell in us, that we can actually be guided by him. That is, that God, through his Son, leads us to where we belong, to whom we belong. I know that people brush all this aside with a certain carelessness. Briefly put, they simply cannot have faith anymore. So here, Bruno points out that, well, when speaking of Jesus, Bruno said that he was the supreme spiritual healer and humanity's greatest friend. And here, I think we partially see why Bruno said that. Because it's actually possible for us to be guided by Christ. then we can invite Christ to really live inside of us, to live through us, and to guide us. And this is what Bruno said um, that he himself did. Here's another quote of Bruno's. He said, this was to a woman named Sister Maria, who was a Catholic nun. He said, Sister Maria, you have to do more. Always imagine Christ to be with you, working within you and through you. Not you, not the person. This you have to put aside. I have to do this also. So some people don't feel a resonance with Christ and might hear me talking about this and just be like, oh no, yuck. And that's kind of how I was at the beginning of finding Bruno Gruning's teachings. I didn't want to hear about um, Jesus or being guided by Christ, or I just wanted help and healing. And that's fine for anyone who feels or believes that way. That you're absolutely welcome here. And when it comes to religion and specific ideas, like most of what Bruno Gruning taught would be any person of any religion, and sometimes even people of no religion can really relate to and connect with. And this is one idea of Bruno's, that Christ can dwell within us and can guide us, that some people won't, and that's okay. And I personally find it just so heart touching, this idea that Christ really is with us. And again, putting aside the idea of Christ as a religious being, and let's look at how Bruno described him. Bruno described him as the supreme spiritual healer, humanity's greatest friend. So let's start from there. It's almost like let's just start over with Jesus. Let's put aside everything. You can pick it up again, but let's put aside everything we've ever been taught about Jesus. And let's start with that Jesus Christ is the supreme spiritual healer and humanity's greatest friend. Let's just sit with that for a moment. There have been so many things said about Christ, but what if Christ is, in the spiritual sense of the word, our greatest friend? And what if he is, here on this planet anyway, the supreme spiritual healer, the one who's able to free people from evil and burdens and illness, unlike any other? So let's just sit with that and see if it resonates or doesn't. We'll spend a little time putting aside our other ideas, temporarily putting them aside, and listening deep inside ourselves. Is this true, what Bruno Gruning said of Jesus? The supreme spiritual healer. Not just us as individuals, but the whole human race. Bruno said humanity's greatest friend. And what if all Christ really wants is to help us? What if? That's my belief. My belief is that Christ is here to help and guide us on our path. End of story. That's kind of my whole theology about Jesus. Bruno says Jesus was a son of God. He also said that God has more than one son. I say, okay, I trust Bruno Gruning, so that's probably true, but I don't know how to verify that in my own experience. So I just kind of put that as more will be revealed. But what I can explore is this idea that he's a friend and he's with me always and he's available to help. and that I can be guided. That's something I can do. I can say, okay, Christ, what's the next? And that's what I did this morning when I got this guidance. Like, okay, Christ, what should I do about this? Are you really with me? Is it true? You're humanity's greatest friend and also my own. Those are ideas that we can, through tuning in, and then through just trying them out, we can find out for ourselves. But for me, it was immensely, immensely healing to just take on this view that Christ just wants to help each person take the next step on their spiritual path. Or as Bruno Gröning so poetically said, that we can be guided by him. That is, that God, through his Son, leads us to where we belong, to whom we belong. That Christ is just here helping each person take the next step on their journey back to God, back to freedom from all evil. So again, some of these ideas, when Bruno Gröning says nothing is impossible, nothing is incurable, I can I'm able to verify that in my direct experience. And he says there is a divine energy that helps and heal. I can verify that in my direct experience. I can practice tuning in, and I've experienced healings. But this idea that, that Christ is our helper and a healer and our friend, I can't exactly verify that. But what I can say is that idea feels 1,000 times better and 1,000 times more true than a lot of the ideas I was raised with. And I can then look deeply within and begin to find my own answer. Like, okay, this is what Bruno Gröning said about Jesus, but what's really true? Not that Bruno Gröning is wrong, but I have to find out inside myself what's true. Taking Bruno Gröning's word, trusting Bruno works, but being like, oh, well, this is true because Bruno Gröning said it. That doesn't work, and that's actually not what Bruno Gröning wanted. He wanted us to have a strong connection to God so that we could have our own answers. He didn't want people to follow him. He wanted people to follow God. He did want people to follow his instructions, his suggestions for how to get connected to God, but he certainly never wanted to force anyone to follow those instructions. Maria wrote, yes, and exactly. I don't know what the yes and exactly is to, but I'm glad that what I'm saying is resonating. And welcome, Maria. I think this is your first time saying hello at one of these meetings. So the thing is we've been taught wrongly about how to learn. And so it creates this kind of crazy cycle. So I was taught certain things about Jesus, but even more importantly, I was taught how to find out what's true. The way I was taught to find out what was true is to read books and then just kind of decide to study a lot, or believe what I was told in church, or believe what the Bible says. It's almost like decide who has the authority and then agree with whatever they say. That's how I was taught to learn. Bruno Gröning has said that's absolutely wrong. He said, don't listen to people. Instead, Bruno Gröning has taught us to learn like this. Learn how to connect to God, learn how to listen deeply inside yourself, and then get your own answers. The other way he said to learn is through this practice of tuning in. He said, if you observe your body, the truth will reveal itself inside of you. I thought that was a bit of a big claim until it started to happen for me. Spiritual books, which I had been studying for like 15 plus years and not able to make heads or tails of, after getting really committed to tuning in, I could suddenly understand them. And then even more so, there were certain spiritual books that I had made them the authority. I'd been like, okay, well, it's in this book, so it must be true. Then as I would read, I would start to feel, well, that's right, and that's true, but that's not true, and that's partially true. And started to really have a sense of knowing what's true and what's not true. And I make no claims to be some great prophet or some guru. I believe this is an innate capacity that we all have and we've been trained out of. So let's relearn how to learn. Let's relearn how to have a direct, clear connection to God. And then from there, feel into what's true and what isn't. So let's spend a little time reflecting on all this, observing the body, wanting the good, wanting to know the truth. Yes, thank you, Maria. That's almost exactly what Bruno Gröning said. He said, I want to restore people's natural human instinct. All right, dear ones, thank you so much for joining in today. And a warm welcome to Maria. So glad this resonates, and thank you for your sharing. That's exactly, maybe slightly different wording, but the exact essence of what Bruno taught. So I'm going to close us with a prayer. Beloved Maker, beloved Christ, and our dear friend Bruno Gröning, please help us learn to let go of what we've been taught and learn how to look within, to listen to God, to listen to this beautiful, beautiful gift God has given us, our conscience, which is our soul, which can receive this beautiful divine energy, but which can also help us to know what's true and what's not true. Please help us learn to be followers of God, not followers of other people. Certainly, we can look to other people for inspiration, but ultimately, let's realize who the true teacher is and who the true physician is, and that would be God. Please, guidance, faith, trust, humility, and devotion to seek the divine connection more and more. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. Thanks for saying hi, Germana, Magdalena, Gerald. Yes. Thank you to all of you who came, and God bless everyone who joined in live and watched this video. Thank you, thank you, thank you.